Hey, everybody. This is Troy over at Uncomfortable Truths. Thanks for checking me out. So, today I want to talk a little bit about presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy, who was just interviewed on The Young Turks by Cenk Uyugur and Anna Kasparian, which is kind of interesting because Cenk Uyugur is also a presidential candidate running in the Democratic Party. So, this was kind of like a half interview, half debate kind of thing going back and forth between Cenk and Vivek. And I'm going to be honest with you, coming into this, I definitely would have thought I was more aligned with Vivek than with Cenk. And on most issues, I probably still am. However, this interview brought up one issue that I am hardcore against that Vivek was supporting. And this was this idea that we should have a civics test in order to vote, because that's one of the things that Vivek is saying he wants to do is institute a civic test for voting. And to be honest, everybody, I am hardcore against that. I think that it is an absolute horrible idea. And I was madder than a Democrat in a rooster fight watching this whole thing unfold, because there is no reason to give somebody an excuse to start providing tests for voting. My reasoning behind this is it may start out with a civics test that everybody says, yeah, you should know the three branches of government. You should know how many congressmen, senators, whatever the kind of basic stuff is that a person should know in order to vote and participate. Well, that all might sound fine to you, and maybe it doesn't, but to me, that seems, more or less pretty reasonable. But then you start to get into the fact, well, who's going to administer these tests? And then who's going to decide what we add on to those tests? So maybe it does start off as knowing, a few basic questions about US history or our form of government. And then it could devolve, well, I mean, why are we letting people that don't have 4-year degrees actually vote and do these things? It's a slippery slope. And while you might like the person in power making these decisions, now, there's no guarantee that you're going to like them in the future. So if you start doing this thing, you start saying, well, you don't get a vote unless you do this or unless you do that. That's a definitely slippery. I can't even say it. I'm so mad. Slippery slope that it's just going to keep rolling on. And then we're going to be fighting about what to add, what not to add. And I just don't think that's a good way to do it. For one, it kind of has some historical issues, such as issues that we've had before with poll taxes and literary tests that were historically used to make sure that Black people couldn't vote, or poor people, because you're worried that they might do something you don't like. Now, this is one of those issues where Republicans are probably correct that people under 25 are almost certainly not going to be voting, in bulk at this point in time for the Republican Party. Well, then they need to go out there and make the case to these people why they should vote for them. That's what our whole democracy is premised on. And if they don't want to participate in that, and instead you have groups of people wanting to, block or control voting. However, when it comes to citizens or people that come here and then take their civics tests and become United States citizens, of course we want them to vote. You want them to vote even if they don't agree with you. It's a principled issue. So if people under 25 are going to go to the Democratic Party, even though I'm a Republican, my answer is to my Republican congressmen and senators and the president, say, hey, why aren't you doing things to get more people to vote on our side? That's what I want you to do. I actually think that implementing these policies will be a benefit. And if other people don't agree, then that's why we have these elections. So to institute something that is just testing people for voting, I am not in favor of whatsoever. However, the one issue that I do kind of agree with is, yeah, I'm 100% fine with ID laws. I don't think it's too much to ask for you to show your ID, if you're going to vote. To me, that seems 100% reasonable. People that are complaining about that, I think, are absolutely childish. If you can't find your ID, then I don't really know that it's appropriate for you to be voting. But this is a completely separate deal. And this is kind of Vivek's own pet project. And even though he's somebody that I've kind of been watching on the Republican Party, that pretty much guaranteed that I don't think I would be able to support him long term. Now, it definitely depends on who he's up against and who the other options are. But considering we've got, people running as independents, we have some outside members, running in the Democratic Party. We also have outside members running in the Republican Party. I think Vivek is still certainly, outside the mainstream. And you see that like in the debates and different things where he's largely attacked on issues that I do think, is a good idea. Like his argument for wanting this is that, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to instill a sense of, national pride. Well, I don't know that a civics test is going to do that, or that it's going to be another task that somebody has to do just before they, get approved for something. I think there's a lot of things we can be proud of, with our civics, but needing another test applied to you by the government is something that I certainly don't want. And I don't think it's appropriate for a politician or somebody who's trying to become the president to say that they're going to add another step for you to go through, another hoop to jump through in order for you to vote. That's not their place. And you definitely shouldn't support that position, even for those of you that are supporting Vivek. I just don't think that it's not good with optics. It's not a good policy because, again, just because you agree with it today doesn't mean you're going to agree with it when the opposing party is in power and they get to decide what's going to show up on that test. So there is probably something to needing to have some sort of response to the civic disengagement that we've had, but making it more difficult to vote, I just don't see as being particularly, great. Now, to be honest, on this interview, I think that there were times where Cenk did not handle it particularly well or in a professional manner. He kept bringing up how much, Vivek loves Trump, which honestly, there's not nothing to that, but at the same time, you were debating somebody on your show in good faith, and then you kept trying to bring it about somebody else. Now, I don't think that's necessarily the most professional or appropriate thing to do, but on this point, I think Jenk's right. There's no reason for that to happen, and one of the points that got brought up was that, there's immigrants take the test, so why shouldn't people that live here? Well, for one, we already have citizenship. That's so why are we needing to take something extra to do it? We're not trying to gain citizenship. We already have it. And the idea that, citizens are taking it, well, or sorry, people trying to become citizens, well, yeah, that's perfectly fine. But once they have become citizens, they don't need to take extra tests. They've already done it. And I love immigrants. I think the people that come here legally, they work hard. They come here believing in the American dream. They participate fully in society. They have extremely low crime rates in general. So the idea that this is somehow attack on immigrants, I think, is probably not true. But I think it's fair to expect, yeah, if you want to come to our country, you should know a little bit about, our basic stuff. But once you've hit that mark and you're a citizen, just like those of us that are born here are citizens, then no, there's no reason that you should have to jump through any other hoops. There's no reason that people that are born here should jump through extra hoops. Voting should be a simple process where we all go in, we cast our vote for what we believe, and then we try to change people's minds. This is why we don't have fighting in the street over political differences. Like, you need to respect your opponents to some degree. And frankly, I think that this is something that doesn't show that. Vivek swears up and down that it's not, but I do think that it's likely in response to the fact that young people tend not to vote for my party. And that's something that I just have to be honest about and say, yeah, sometimes young people aren't voting for this party, but I think you should. And here is why. I think they become the party that more likely is going to oppose war, such as, the Ukrainian war and the, different conflicts all over. I think that they're the only people that are skeptical. So what I do is I make that argument. And if people agree with it, they go, okay, well, maybe he agrees, or maybe they disagree and it doesn't change their mind. But I'm not trying to take away or make it more difficult for them to vote, because that's just a principled issue that nobody should step in. It looks bad, it is bad, and it's something that we should have no part in my opinion. But anyway, everybody, I'm curious what everyone thinks. Go ahead and leave a comment below. I would really appreciate it. Hit like and subscribe, and I'm excited to talk to you guys more about this in the future. Thanks.